Greetings, dear family. This is Mama Mawusi of the Body Temple Institute of Holistic Health and Herbal Studies, kicking off this Master Herbalist class for Course 3. I just really wanted to talk about human engineering, human re-engineering by Dr. Jewel Pookrum, which was a part of your class 5 assignment, to just really sit down and really watch this video and break it down, take copious notes, because you have to understand how through the different artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives, through the sounds, tones, and waves, through the environmental toxins that we deal with, as well as psychological toxins that we create from dealing with other people, places, and things, stressors that we deal with. Also, the way that we have been trained to react in schools and in our workplaces, and the stress that we have, much less in the genetically modified organisms of food. Have we been re-engineered? We have been genetically modified to respond in certain ways. We have been retrained to respond in ways that are dangerous and detrimental to our forward progress and evolution as beings on this planet. Due to, and I will say it without apology, due to European imperialism, is what we are experiencing on this planet. We, in their brazen maverick use of Monsanto's genetically modified organisms, and their brazen use of the Food and Drug Administration in their administrations here and in Europe, in their brazen spread of Monsanto's seeds and other things to other continents, as well as their inspiration to China to also express their throwing their hat in the ring also with plastic rice, as well as putting all types of toxins in toys and artificial hair, African hair products, black hair products, hair care products, and things like this. We have been the underdogs as well as the ignorant ones in this race, and we have been the subjects of re-engineering. It is very important for us to understand the underpinnings of this concept of re-engineering, because we will be serving people in our family communities whom are victims of this process of re-engineering. We'll be serving people who are literally have been violated by their now addiction to these artificial foods, colors, flavors, tones, toxins, and environments, and mind states, psychological mind states that are self-destruct, that cause us to be self-destructive. So this is why the next 5 lessons are clearly important. We're looking at in lesson 6 site assessments, being able to see where there is deficiency or excess in the body, by looking at one's hair, skin, fingernails, also their irises, and also their touching their reflex points. Trying to make sure everybody gets here. But if Miles, if you got here, everybody should have the memo by now. The one of the things that as Africans, also movement. Sorry, as Africans, we had a system of medicine as well. I mean, even amongst the West Africans, specifically, a teacher by the name of Yaya Diallo, who was a drummer. And as a drummer, he could discern where illness was in the body by watching someone dance to his drumming. And if he could see how your waist, how you were able to move and bend at the waist, or your shoulders, neck, or how your knees or ankles, feet, how these things bent and moved, determined and discerned he was able to discern your illness, or where your illness lied in the body. That was very interesting to hear and to learn from him in relation to that. And then also to it was beautiful to hear a brother, back in the day I had got my hair cut, and get to hear a brother assess my health via the texture of my hair, and be able to discern if he felt I needed more protein, or more if there needed to be more fats in my diet. That was very interesting. Understanding that just from a mundane level, you don't have to take it to a lab or anything, just by sight assessment. This is why I call it assessment. And as we go deeper into understanding law and whatnot, we're not allowed to use the word diagnose, but it's an assessment. And this assessment is simply an observation. Simply an observation by the movement, and nothing can stop. Were physicians before Europeans cornered the market on physicians that we may use the same definition but a different name. You may be called an Nganga, you may be called something else amongst the Kemetans or amongst the Zulu people, but they were certainly masters at finding disorder and dis-ease in the body. If you go in on class lesson 6, class 3 lesson 6, you will find the different ways that the body can be assessed, as well as the different ways that the body communicates itself. This chapter in and of itself will be called "The Body Don't Lie," because in essence the body communicates it has its own story to tell. I love the concept. I really want you all to dig in on the iridology concept and reflexology charts, because they are key to us being able to discern that is below the surface. Also to listen beyond listening to where a person is saying their pain is, and what could be a possible issue. This goes into understanding cellular intelligence, and something that I really found to be very eye-opening was neuroplasticity. I'm going to talk about cellular intelligence first. Cellular intelligence is a very interesting concept, because it talks to us. It speaks about the way that our body communicates, the way that our liver communicates with our kidneys, and the way that our kidneys communicates with our brain. It also breaks down that language. Cellular intelligence does. That language of there is a threat to the body that is discerned by the skin, and within minutes there are immune system cells sent to that area from the different ports and points of the body. What is very fascinating and what is very interesting is how the body communicates with itself. We have to recall and remember that there are billions of cells in our body, and those billions of cells that make up what I look like right now is important and communicates clearly and consistently with itself constantly in a per millisecond, all the time. And this communication is basically communicating health or disease. It's why also our psychology can create our physiology. It's very much why we are capable of communicating disorder, disease, self-hate, and self-destruction to ourselves, to our cells, causing us to have disease and disorder in our bodies. This is very serious. This is a very serious thing. This communication happens through our nervous system. It happens through the nerves that are implanted inside of our cells, our tissues, our organs, our skin, all throughout our organism. And it is the very also the ability to communicate happens through hormonal response. The triggers of a hormonal response communicate information through the interspersal tissue from one organ to another, from one endocrine gland to another endocrine gland. This is very deep. And this is why, when I said our psychology creates our physiology, this is why it's very important to understand toxic emotions. Where did they come from? And why would they come from a self-loving being? Why would they infiltrate a self-loving being and then begin to dismantle that self-loving being's ability to defend itself? This is a big deal. We have to watch the programming. So the television programming, radio programming, all these different types of programming that is placed before us. What's interesting is that now I want to get down to some nitty-gritty, and that's understanding how even light can program. That's what comes to me right now when I'm thinking about our irises, which is the brown part of our eyes. And when the brown part of our eyes lets light into our eyes. And have you all ever been to a movie theater in which there is a flash? There's all these flashes that is going on. My husband and I cover our children's eyes if we ever watch some sort of something, movie, documentary or something, and they have that part in the beginning where that flash is happening. It's because we know that inside of this is a programmed message. And also there's a message that this message then goes directly into our cerebral cortex, but right in the center is our pineal gland, right in the center. And that then affects our very timekeeper, our body's timekeeper. And our bodies, the pineal gland is our body's, it communicates to every single part and every single cell of our body. And so that's very important to protect and defend yourself from things that are infiltrating, seeking to overcome you. Going into now, this part is what I wanted to talk about, was neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is actually part and parcel of not just this lesson, but lesson 7, in a way that it helps you to understand how chronic disease and symptoms come from doing the same thing the same way. Our psycho-emotional approaches and our physical behavior patterns wear a deep groove into our brains and cause our brains to always respond to certain triggers in a certain way. and certainly and surely. And as they respond to these triggers, they create a pattern in the brain that could eventually cause disease or disorder. Neuroplasticity is where they have discovered that we are able to change the direction of our neural brain patterns. We're able to change the direction instead of continuing on that same path. Every time I get into an argument, I then begin to hone in on one part of the argument and then carry that whole part of the argument to distract the whole thing. And that's always my tactic. You go this way to work. I always respond this way to this trigger. Well, there is a way to take yourself off of that track and place yourself on another track. But the way to do it goes into lesson 8, unlearning the disease process. Unlearning the disease process starts in the mind, as they say, as above, so below. Neuroplasticity deals with the brain and how the brain responds to these triggers, as I was saying before. I'm going to read you the definition. Neuroplasticity, also known as brain plasticity, is the ability of the brain to change throughout an individual's life. Whereas before we were taught that once you're a child and your brain grows between 0 and 5, it's the most it's going to grow. The most brain patterns it's going to create is between 0 and 5. The way it's going to see its worldview is between 0 and 5. And then pretty much it stays static for the rest of your life. Therefore, that doesn't make any sense, because then that means that even when you're 55, you're going to still be looking at life like a 5-year-old. However, what is more true to fact is that we're finding ourselves changing as we grow to become a teenager, a pre-teenager, then a teenager experiencing puberty, and then an adult, a young adult, and then an older adult in your mid-30s, and then even an older adult in your mid-40s, close to 50. And as you grow, your brain changes its way of thinking, comprehending, perceiving information. It also changes its worldview during those times. Research in the latter half of the 20th century showed that many aspects of the brain can be altered, even through adulthood. This notion is in contrast with the previous scientific consensus that the brain develops during early childhood and then remains relatively unchanged. Neuroplasticity can be observed in many scales, from microscopic changes in individual neurons to larger scale changes, such as cortical remapping in response to an injury. You know how people have an injury and they say that this person will be paralyzed for a very long time, but this person ends up relearning how to walk, how to talk, how to move very fluidly. This is called cortical remapping in response to injury. They also told us that once you kill brain cells, that they cannot grow back. That is not true. This is so very important to us, because as we talk to people, we help and we serve people in our family communities, we will find that they can outgrow a disorder. They can, yes, people can defy the definitions of disorder and disease and for which they have been diagnosed. We will find that, yes, they can also defy what is learned by learning something new. They can also defy issues with memory and dementia. If you've ever seen the video of the man for whom is listening to music, and before he listens to music, he can't feed himself, he can't think, he can't talk. But after he listens to music, he can think, he can say his entire name, he can say his address, he can even feed his own self after listening to his favorite music. The brain can recover and relearn, even if it is damaged. So this is something that is very, very important in relation to cellular intelligence. So a cell can change the places of trigger. It can change its places of sedation or excitement or stimulation. It can discern that it is time to move to and change to another way. And this is very important in unlearning disease, talking about that in the disease process in lesson 8, overcoming the pull of disease. For self-preservation, we must unravel the hard um, wiring of our breeding process in America. We must also un, un, un chain ourselves from the vibrations, the energies that they've sent, the environmental toxins, the toxins in our foods, and the toxins in our behaviors that are self-destructive. This is so key to changing the cycle of disease that has that is committing genocide right now. We're in the process of a genocide that is happening to our family community, the people in our family communities. So it's very simple. It's very serious. We have to check out those things on lesson 7 and 8. I didn't put the neuroplasticity in there or this the cellular intelligence. I think I did put it in an older version of this class, but I don't think I put the article in there. I had a very good article, and then I could not find it, so I had to omit it when I revised the class. So obviously, I may have given you an older class. I'm sorry for that. So I did send you a new course booklet, so that you have it. If you are able to download it and put it amongst the your course materials, and then delete the course booklet that you already have, Miles. So that could be a better help. I do also plan to. I think that this is a good topic to expound upon. And maybe this will be something that I want to make a video on later, because I really want to testify, to really pull together this information, and also to create formulate the solution strategies that we can utilize to help people to remap themselves, not just from a car crash or some serious paralysis, but how can we remap our brains from contributing to uterine fibroids, from contributing to kidney disorders, to stop a disorder in its tracks before it goes into something even more serious, like a cancer or something. That's what we have to do. That's our responsibility. The last thing I wanted to talk about, this brings me to this point that I was feeling was a very interesting point, was addiction. And we deal a lot with addiction, and we really don't know it. We really are not clear on the fact that it actually needs to be in the forefront. That a lot of the illnesses that our people are dealing with are a direct result of our addiction to certain foods. Our addiction to sugar. When who has arthritis, someone who has different types of issues with in my mind, I've said adrenal fatigue, issues with different things in our bodies, even digestive issues. Some of it is the direct result is sugar. Some of it, the direct result is the consumption of starches and wheats. Some of it is the direct genetically modified wheats and things like that. It's these things are direct killers to our bodies, and our addiction to them places us in the line of fire. And this is why this is why it's so important to help someone whom asks for help. Because that's the other thing, is that though we may see it, that person may not be ready to deal with it yet. And until they are ready to grab their healing treatment by the horns and be honest and say out loud, this is what the addiction is. This is what triggers my addiction. This is what makes me reach for sugar. And this is what, in true indeed, it is the sugar. Then, with that being the case, this is where we can then begin to help them to go further. To then, I guess it is to then study. We'll have to study. One of the videos that I was watching before was the Addictive Brain. And I think this is a book. But I found it on YouTube, so I'm not sure if it's a book or not, but I found it on YouTube. And the video The Craving Brain, Neuroscience of Uncontrolled Urges. That's an interesting video. Science of Addiction. These by National Geographic. And these things, this is a very interesting concept on YouTube. Even just typing in the addictive brain, and it helps us to understand what's going on. It also deals with neuroplastics. You know, how the nervous system then wires itself to feel satisfied by the addiction, and also it helps us to stay addicted also. So the neurons only do what you tell them to do. So in essence, we have to bring ourselves under control and pull our reins in, so that we can be more for self-preservation. So that's what I have for you today, and that's what I've come to bring. So if you have any questions, please contact me in my inbox. Let me know. And also, if there is anything that you all need, you have my phone number. Please don't hesitate to call me. If there's something that you may want from me, let me know. And if they may need some help on, let me know. Okay. Many blessings.